Hogstye.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Hog Side. Guess what? Training camp started. It's back. Football is back. It's a happy day for all of you who, just slog through those doldrums of 110-degree weather and maybe you hate baseball or something. I don't know what's wrong with
The
you.
doldrums of position group breakdown after position group breakdown.
Yes, that too.
Well, we saved the best for last, right?
That's only
Yes.
because I messed it up and forgot that we
Right.
didn't have done receivers, but okay.
We did some quick math and realized we were missing one, folks.
I
So
skipped
we
one. I have a list and I skipped it on the list somehow.
yeah. Which is funny. It's one of our best position groups. So
Yeah.
we're going to do
Yeah,
receivers today, later in the show. Of course, this is Alex. That was Dave. That was Steve. I hope you guys are doing good.
I'm fighting with an insurance company over my roof. Thank you very much. So I'm unhappy with the
But you
windstorm
love fighting
provider.
with insurance companies.
Yeah, I do. And see, the guy told me on the phone, we're going to replace. You're going to have a full replacement. Of course, what he meant was a full replacement of the front slope of the roof, not the rear slope of the roof. But he didn't say that. But then he sent me a voicemail later after he sent me an appraisal for half the amount. And so now I'm irritated and fighting with an insurance company.
I'm sorry to hear that, man.
But I also love fighting, so
you
know.
do. You made it your career choice.
And the roof is tarped up, so it cost me $600, which I'll never get back. But the roof is tarped, so there's no, I can afford to fight with them for a little bit. So it'd keep me entertained, if nothing else.
Right, Dave, you doing good?
Unfortunately, I got no hard luck stories to share right now because I'm doing fantastic. So
I'll tell you what, Hurricane Beryl has cost me a lot of money. I'll tell you that.
I'm sure,
and that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
And I did apply for FEMA benefits, and I'm sure like 8 years from now I'll get a letter from them that says no.
Right.
It's like I had legitimate expenses, but no.
Right.
I
I mean, I could go across the street from my office and ask them.
Please do, because that'll help. I'm sure.
I do occasionally deal with FEMA people. They don't like me because they come and borrow like all of our auditorium space and I do events for them. Yeah, but I may have snapped at somebody from FEMA because they were annoying me.
See, I have two things going against me in FEMA. One is they say if it's covered by insurance, we don't cover it. My point is the stuff I have done wasn't covered by insurance, so you ought to do it. And second, I don't know if there's some kind of income, like low income level or whatnot. And I don't know if there is,
I don't know either. I wouldn't be surprised if they prioritize low income.
Maybe, and that's fair enough. But so I applied anyway. We'll see. I will keep I know everybody will be excited to know if it comes through.
Did this hurricane hit you worse than that big one a few years ago?
Well, see, this one was a direct hit.
Yeah,
it was. That. For me, it was the western side is slightly stronger, and that was pretty much a direct hit. So we've had a bunch of hurricanes hit here. Obviously, the one you're talking about is Harvey. That was a ton. That was more rain than anybody had ever had in the continental United States.
Right. I remember you were basically living in like a moated community for a while.
Yeah, for a while. Yeah. This one wasn't really a lot of rain at all. There was no flooding really, but it was a ton of wind because it was a direct hit.
Right.
So even a Cat 1 was like at 85-mile-an-hour wind.
Yeah, that'll mess you up.
Right. What messed the roof up?
Yeah.
And it like blew down every fence, and not mine because mine's new, but.
Cat 1 won't necessarily blow out windows unless something like.
Well, it was a strong Cat 1, and it directly. If it had been even 30 miles, west, it would have been fine. That's why it took Houston by surprise. I don't think we all thought, Cat 1, who cares? And then all of a sudden it was a direct hit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, so I will say it's not impacting me directly, but of course my wife, who is alone at our cabin, rattlesnake that she's got to deal with, so that's fun.
Does she have a shotgun?
Wow. They are an endangered species up there.
So does she have a shotgun?
My uncle has a shotgun next door.
Well, that's what you need to do to the snake. I'm sorry to tell. There's a weird group down here in Texas that are like snake lovers, and they get super offended when I have suggested if you have a poisonous snake on your house, it needs to go. And they get super offended and, oh no, you gotta, call somebody and pay them $500 to get rid of the snake. Well, no, My 12 gauge is going to meet the snake if that
Well,
happens.
so
I just thought you just stare at them and get them into a trance and then rock back and forth slowly.
Well, well, the
Oh no,
last
I'm sorry, that
you
was from
gotta
the
you gotta
Karate
play a
Kid.
recorder when you're doing that.
well, the last one, several years ago now, a water moccasin ended up on my porch, on the
Mhm.
front porch, and that one met the working end of a giant shovel.
Yeah,
Because I'm
that's
not going to let the water moccasin just sit there, and I'm not going to wait for somebody to come get it. It died.
This one, it wasn't on the house. Luckily, it's like down in the yard.
Mhm.
She saw it, but
That's still dangerous. It's got to go.
yeah. Well, so the weird thing is, timber rattlers up there. There hasn't been like a case of somebody getting bitten in a decade. They just don't attack people very often.
Yeah, well, you want to take that chance with
No,
your
I don't.
spouse? Yeah, of
No,
course
I
not.
don't. But and also we have a guy who we can call, and it's free. It's like part of the Forest Service.
Okay.
So she has that number, but it moved on pretty quickly, is what I was told.
All
So,
I know is that my wife would probably reenact that whole meme with that little girl and the burning house behind her.
yep,
I go
Yep.
driving up the driveway and be like, "What's going on? There was a snake in there." Oh, okay.
done. Okay, yeah, I get it.
Well,
Look,
you want to hear a funny,
I
the
hit
other
him more
funny
than
snake
anybody.
story I have?
Sure.
So this goes back to maybe 2008 or something. And so it was a Thursday because it was the day before trash day, which is relevant to this. So it was like at 7 o'clock, and I had to go to like the gas station to get milk or something. I was
Mhm.
gone for like 15 minutes. And when I came back, there's like 5 people in the driveway because like the boys were playing, like shooting hoops or something. And when I walked outside, I smelled this like rotten egg smell. I didn't think anything of it. This is how
I
I
know that
now
smell.
know that that's a water moccasin. And
Well, that's,
so
rattlesnakes too have that smell.
yeah, well, it was a water. This one was a water
Yeah.
moccasin. And so, but I was gone. I was at the gas station getting milk, and so my wife screams bloody murder,
hmm
and the neighbor, who is a guy from a country guy from Louisiana, and his 2 sons come running over, and this water moccasin was like right by the basketball, right in the garden by where the basketball goes. And so they chased it and got it. But the funny part is they just threw it in the trash can was at the curb. They threw the snake in the trash can. And so I opened the trash can and it's got its mouth open right at the top of the trash can, looking right at you when you take it. So I'm sure like I left it there. So the garbage man, when he grabbed the trash can the next day, sees it with its mouth open, dead,
Right.
with its mouth open.
Dead.
Yeah.
You forgot the word dead.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, it was dead. They crushed it with a shovel,
Right.
and but the mouth was open and staring at you right at the top of of the trash can. So sorry to that random trash collector
Yeah.
who I probably scared to death.
If you had if you had our trash man, all that trash would have been all over your yard after all that.
Probably maybe
The
it's
hell with you.
Philadelphia, the city of hate. Yeah.
I think I would actually not blame the trash man in that case.
No, I know, but I thought it was
I
funny,
wouldn't either.
so I
Yeah.
left it, because
Yeah.
I'm just weird like that.
No, that's not weird. I'm not touching it.
But that is so. I've had 2 poisonous snakes like right at the front door, basically.
I've dealt with them before, and like I said, they're an endangered species. So Alex never killed any of these snakes.
Of course not. No,
No.
not on record in front of the public. No.
Right. But I have seen like the full-grown adult ones. They're like 6 feet rattlers.
Mm.
It's intimidating. I know it shouldn't be, but it is.
That's
All
why
right,
I said 12 gauge may be better than shovel and something like that.
Yeah.
A canoe paddle also is a good option. It's got good reach.
The problem with the 12 gauge is you can't shoot, discharge a firearm in city limits, and so that's a problem.
In a lot of places. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I do have my house is in the woods. That's
what I'm saying. For you, 12 gauge would be a great option.
Yeah.
For me,
There's
no.
probably still rules about that though. I just don't know what they are.
Nor do you have a 12 gauge, so
No, I could probably take one with my bow if I had to. I have a good bow.
Look, if it was a bow, I'd just as soon go with the shovel. I mean, if you want to take a chance on missing with the bow and have it come after you, just whack it with the shovel and be done.
You're probably right.
The wonders of how to kill snakes 101. This is what we're talking about here.
Yes, bow not the ideal weapon. I realize that.
Yeah, no.
All right, let's focus in here because it is training camp, and we just spent 10 minutes talking about killing snakes.
Hey.
Training camp started today. by all accounts, very high energy camp for a first day. A lot of great reviews for Jane Daniels that I saw online from all the beat reporters. I'm sure you saw those too, Dave. Uh,
Yes.
Daniels was slicing and dicing. He had several huge deep passes in the not just the one-on-ones, but like in the, I guess it's 7-on-7s they're probably doing right now because they're not in
Yeah.
pads. Um, but he's been making big plays. Uh, Overall, I didn't see anything negative. Like I don't even think there was like a dropped pass in this camp so far with him.
I can guarantee you there was at least one dropped pass in
I
camp
guarantee
so
you there
far.
probably was.
Oh, sure.
Um, but the other big story from camp, Johnny Newton, who was on the pup list as of a week ago, now is healthy enough to practice. So he's already
Full go
kind
too.
of, hmm?
Full go too.
Yeah, full go. And it's not the pup list. It's the, what is it? The non-football injury list that he
It's
was
the
on.
Yeah.
NFI list that
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
talking about. Here's
yeah.
the thing. So Johnny Newton has gone from injured guy who wasn't going to play anyway to non-injured guy who's still not going to play.
Probably
This
not.
is my problem. I posted a comment in our comment section just to stir
Yeah.
up some trouble this morning, just for the heck of it, and because they all get super offended, the few that are,
Yep.
some of the
Yep. Yep.
guys there, and but here's the thing, Washington didn't need this guy. Not only do they have two highly paid starters, they also have the guy from last year,
Right.
Phil Mathis, who also didn't play. And I don't know why they think putting significant draft resources into interior defensive line again was a good idea. I'll never understand that one.
Yeah. I mean, look, from a roster building perspective, I do understand it. There's that counterpoint that he was probably the best player on the board. Fine, if that's your argument, and you really think he was a top 15 pick, and you got him at 34, 36, or whatever. I can understand that argument, but I lean more the way you are, where I would have rather any other position.
Literally any
I'd
other
be
position on the
Yeah.
team. Yeah.
if it wasn't for the fact that we had such a dire need at both left and right tackle.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't the fact that we had such a dire need at the linebacker position. I mean,
Right.
yeah, sure, almost any other position too, but those two especially,
Right.
that we could have made a move on to do. If it wasn't for that fact, I actually would have been okay with it. And even talking with Mark Bullock, I made a comment. I commented on his post about with Newton. One thing he kind of envisions is seeing Payne, if they do like a 3-4 type of setup with Payne at the nose and
Mm-hmm.
having Allen and Newton on the ends right there. I mean, not as our base sets, but you can see packages like that. But still, it's just
I
it
don't think
wasn't a
Newton's
position
can
of
do
need.
that though, in any
It's
kind of regularity is the problem. He's not
well, no,
he's an interior lineman.
Yeah.
well, no,
They,
yeah, you're right about that. That's why Bullock never said like not as a
Yeah.
base package, but he could see some packages with that. But it's just
I
you
mean,
you had far more important needs, and you just
yeah.
should
well,
have taken a shot
I
at
don't
them.
even mind him drafting a defensive lineman necessarily, but second round? I mean,
Yeah.
really?
yeah.
I mean, because when you have a second rounder, you want that person to start. Otherwise, there's not really good use of draft resources. That's my problem with it.
I,
Draft a starter for Christ's sake.
I understand what Dave's saying though. Like and I keep coming back to that Seattle 4-3 under defense that Quinn ran. He did use a defensive tackle as a edge guy a whole lot in that package because it would be the outside linebacker then lined up as another edge rusher outside of him. So it's almost like a 3-4 in some respects.
I mean, that's fair
Yeah,
enough. I mean, I
yeah.
guess you have to think that Phil Mathis is running on borrowed time, I guess,
Oh,
don't you? I mean,
absolutely. Yeah. The
I
guy's
I
never
wouldn't even,
healthy.
yeah, I wouldn't even be surprised if he's fighting for his roster life. To be honest with you.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Because they
Otherwise, there's
also
no
have
point.
Yeah.
Ridgeway and they have other guys there too.
Yep.
That we
Yeah,
haven't
but
even mentioned.
Mathis is the guy who, I mean,
Yeah,
highly drafted. You know.
yeah. So, going back to Jaden Daniels real briefly, Dan Quinn and Adam Peters in their press conference yesterday said they're not naming Jaden Daniels the starter yet. Big deal, not a big deal. What do you guys think?
I think if they want to go through the facade, feel free. He's going to start. That's what I think.
Dave?
Well, I know if I'm reading this, yeah, the Quinn had made a comment of so he's not the best on patience. It's how quickly he could become good. I want
Hmm.
urgency in what we're doing, and he wants the execution and communication. He wants to practice the same as it would be the game, if not so forth, yada yada. So basically, all the intentions are there to be from be a starter, but they're going to exude like what Quinn says. Even though he's not a patience guy, he's still going to allow everything to unfold the proper steps, to take the
Hmm.
proper steps rather. So basically, it's kind of a competition, but we all know he's going to win that competition anyway. But
Sure.
he's playing it that route because he doesn't want Daniels worry or focused on that number one role. He wants him to worry about the playbook, execution,
Yeah.
ironing out any mistakes he has pointed out to him. His focus has to be just what's going on today and what he needs to do to improve for tomorrow. That's all he wants Jaden Daniels to worry about, nothing
Eh,
else.
yeah, and let me clarify. I mean, I think it's the right thing to do, right thing for Quinn to say and do. I
Hmm.
don't think it would be a good idea to anoint him. All my point was I think he's going to start at the end. That's all
Sure.
I was saying. But I actually very much agree with. I think I was being a bit too cynical. I was
Right.
very much agree with the philosophy, what you're talking about, Dave. Exactly. It's like, don't anoint this dude. Let him focus on learning. I
Right.
agree. I'm just saying, I think at the end of the day, they're going to start him. That's all I meant.
I mean, I think so too. I mean, you guys know I'm very much a proponent of letting a rookie sit a little while, but I don't see that happening in this situation. I just
Well, also I mean, I'm be honest too. Well, he has a 5 year college career, right? So it's
Oh
not
yeah.
like he's only been a starter for like 1 or 2 years. I
Yeah, I don't
mean,
remember exactly how many games he started in college, but it was a
because
lot.
because he was what 3 with Arizona, right? Arizona State,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
then 2 with
3. Yeah,
LSU.
yeah.
So
Yep.
I mean, he's just as ready as anybody else to come in day one as a starter. So as far as being prepared and being ready mentally
Hmm.
for the actual to be a starter, I think he's already there. Because he's already 5 years already as a starter elsewhere. So
Yeah. And by the way, I think he played. I'm doing the trying. I think 55 games in college. So that's a lot of playing time in college.
yeah,
He's
Yeah.
very experienced. In Washington's had quarterbacks that were not.
Right.
I mean, they've drafted quarterbacks in the first round who were not experienced.
right,
Rest in peace.
Yeah.
Um, but Jane Daniels is not that at all.
yeah.
No, he's got plenty of playing experience. And look, everything's looking great for him. I don't know if you guys have been watching any of that Giants Hard Knocks offseason thing yet. Um,
I've watched a little bit of it here and there.
so the most recent episode has Jane Daniels' visit with the Giants before the draft, and dude, it's amazing how all in the Giants kind of were on trying to get him at one point. And I guess they realized, oh, there's no way Washington's gonna not draft him.
Right.
So, but
And there's
like,
no way the Bears are moving back. So
yeah, yeah, they were drooling. They were really drooling over Jaden Daniels at one point. Um, it's
Can you
almost
blame
sad
him?
to watch. Hmm?
I
No, I
mean,
can't. Yeah,
he's a great prospect.
he's a great prospect,
yeah,
and uh, they've got their own guy, who their own Daniel, who they got to deal with.
I
So
saw I saw a clip being shared around with Daniel Jones doing a simple little screen. He
yeah, I
turned
saw that too.
around and just like just like overshot the running back by like 2, 3 yards. No,
Yeah, like
I
over his
couldn't help
head
but
by about
laugh.
2 or 3 yards.
But
Yeah,
we can laugh at Daniel Jones and everything, and that's fine.
Right.
But the truth is, the Giants did most things right with him. And what
yeah,
I mean, they
yeah.
gave
That's true.
they used the pick. They believed in him. They gave him a shot.
They didn't.
They stuck with him when nobody else would. He did pretty well for a time. I mean, the
Hmm.
Giants had a
Yeah,
terrible team around him.
Yep.
I mean, it's amazing. Daniel Jones is doing what he's done. He's not been a train wreck. He's not been great, but they also had a horrible offensive line, who,
well,
by the way,
that's
is
true.
who's the offensive line coach? Who's
Here.
he the
Yeah.
coach of now? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. 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 It
Matter of
is
fact,
the
that kind of sounds familiar, doesn't it?
it
A
kind of
new
does.
highly drafted quarterback, terrible offensive line coach.
Yeah,
Deja
yeah.
vu all over again.
A lot.
That's
Yeah, there's been a
that's
lot.
why I'm more than happy if they were decided to go with Mariota for the first quarter of the season, throw him to the wolves for a month.
Yeah,
That
I
could
don't think
whistle
they
in.
will. I
No, they
kind of
won't.
agree with
I
you. I
know.
don't think they will, but yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. They're definitely not going to do that in the end. Um. All right. So the other thing that's kind of been coming out a lot in this first camp, there's been a lot of Luke McCaffrey praise. Terry McLaurin had some like really high marks for him in terms of his preparation and just the way he goes about working out and doing all the little things right. We shouldn't be surprised. We're talking about a guy whose brother is an all star. His father was a Pro Bowler. Like, he comes from good football genes. He's got people telling him this is what you got to do. So he's going to do the right things. What it means on the field, we don't know. But there's been a lot of positivity about Luke McCaffrey so
Well,
far.
I mean, I broke his film down.
Yeah,
And the thing about Luke McCaffrey is he doesn't necessarily have the raw physical talent of some others,
right.
but he's smart. All the things you just said, I'm not going to repeat him. All
Yeah,
that's the positive of him. I mean, the negative is he's not like Terrell Owens, who's
no,
got everything.
Right.
That's the downside to him. But I think
he's
he's a great.
average speed. Yeah,
Yeah, he's smooth. Yeah, he's not all that agile.
right,
He does have good hands,
right.
but I
That's
think that's his
his
downside.
biggest
But I
thing.
think that's a great person to take a shot at, especially if you just need like a number two, number three option possession receiver or
Mhm.
something.
Someone's a little gritty too.
Yeah.
Like you need guys who will do some of the dirty work. Not everyone's going to be the deep ball superstar.
No.
You always need two or three receivers who are just going to get you 5 yards when you need
And don't
five.
forget he was a quarterback. I mean, he understand. I
Hmm.
mean, not a great quarterback, but I mean, he understands offense in a manner that probably others don't,
Yep.
especially with
Yep.
his dad and brother and all that stuff. I mean, that's a
Hmm.
perfect
Right.
guy to take a shot at, I think.
Yeah. How
Yeah,
many?
it's just when I see him and I kind of hear what you guys are saying and things that people would talk about with him, he kind of takes me back to the Jets had a receiver named Wayne Corbett.
Hmm.
Oh
He was a
yeah, Wayne Corbett.
guy. Yeah, he wasn't the fastest guy in the field, but he was a good route runner. He understood the game. He was a strong. Well, he kept himself in really good shape. He always took care of his body.
Hmm.
He was an intelligent player, and he was a very precise route runner. I mean, he was never a true number one receiver, but he was definitely a really good complement to what they had at that time. I always say Keyshawn Johnson was with him at that time and so forth. So
Boy, you
Yeah.
really pulled
kind
the name out. I mean, for
Yeah.
those of you who don't remember,
I had
he
to
retired.
Google him. It's
Yeah,
been almost 20
2005.
years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes,
yeah.
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
And I
Uh,
mean, the photo of him in Wikipedia makes him look like he's like a reporter or something. And they've got him in like a button-down shirt and a crappy jacket, just standing there on the sidelines. It's a really odd
he
picture
might
to
be a
have him.
reporter now. Who knows?
Yeah, yeah, maybe. Yeah, who knows?
In
Let's
fact,
Um.
see.
I believe it was injuries that wound up actually cutting his career shorter. He
mm,
had a lengthy career. I think 9 years. I think total.
Well, it says 1995 through 2005, so full
yeah.
decade.
Hey, man. That's a successful career in the NFL.
Absolutely, it
Hmm.
is.
Yeah. Um.
Does not
Yeah.
say what he's doing after. For anybody wondering, I
We
don't
don't
see
know if
any.
he's actually a reporter.
Yeah, no, he just looks like, or like an accountant on
Yeah.
dress down day or something.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, look. If he had a 10-year career in that era, he's probably happily retired.
Oh, here we go. It does have a section. Let's see.
Oh, what's he? All right, Steve's looking at his Wikipedia. So, and I didn't just go in and write all this.
No, 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 no. Let's see.
uh, yeah. So,
Oh my God. Okay.
what?
Let's see. Corbett is now involved in owning standard bred harness racehorses.
Oh, he's into horse racing.
He's into horse
Okay.
There we go.
racing. Let's see. He lives in Colts Neck Township, New Jersey. Operated 2 restaurants in Long Island. One later
Okay.
closed, reopened as a sports bar. And so
So,
he's running a couple restaurants and bars and racing horses. There
so
you go.
There you go.
he's doing the Sam Huff thing. because that's what Sam Huff did after he retired.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was way into horse racing.
Hmm.
If you ever talk to our old buddy Rick Snyder about it, like Rick and him bonded over horse racing, I think.
Oh,
Yeah.
who knew?
Nice.
Nerds like me who pay attention to what old people say.
I met him once in
Huff?
I went to see a Redskins game in Detroit, and he was in the lobby there, and I didn't want to bother him, but
Yeah, just
decent guy.
yeah, one of the meanest men on the football field, but nice guy.
Yeah, he was fine. I think he was ahead of me in like the coffee line or something, if I remember.
Oh, okay. All right, so all right, let's switch gears here. We got to talk about the big news from earlier. Was this week or was it last week? It was last week, right?
I think
Jason Wright.
It was since our last show.
Since our last show.
Yeah, it was last week.
Jason Wright has officially been announced that he will be leaving the team at some point. He is now a senior advisor. Basically, they're just like, we'll give you a paycheck until you can find something else or until we find your actual replacement, it sounds like. But Josh Harris and Tad Brown are going to start looking for his replacement. I didn't get a chance to run into Tad Brown up at Lake George because he goes up there from time to time. So unfortunately, I did not get to throw my hat in the ring, which is a bummer.
That is a bummer because we would have had a good guest on the show.
Yeah, that would have been.
Introducing the new president of the Washington football.
He's not
team,
going to be the new
Alex
president.
No, I was talking about you, Alex.
Me.
You said throw your hat in the ring.
Right. Yes, like I have any experience qualifying for that, but nor did Jason Wright. So it worked out okay for him.
If Bob Menendez and Carlos Santos can be in Congress, you can be the president of a football team.
Right? Like it doesn't really matter what your qualifications are. I just don't look good in a suit. That's the real problem.
Well, you might have to shape up, man.
All right, so Wright is out. I feel like I don't want to say bad things about people when they lost their job, so to speak, but like, dude, when it came to the public facing stuff, man, did he make a lot of mistakes. He probably did a great job in revamping the front office and getting rid of some of the toxic culture stuff overall, but we don't see that, right? Like we only saw the Sean Taylor statue, the terrible uniform and name reveal and things like that.
He struck me as kind of a phony. I mean, he smiled a lot. Like the fans, the really hardcore simping fans out there loved him because he was always nice. And I don't fault him for being nice. But look, I mean, he knew the second Dan Snyder sold the team, he was going to go.
Sure.
There's no way the new owner was going to not have his own team president in there, so he was going to go. And I mean, he made a lot of
lasted a year.
Well, I mean, a lot of times when you're talking major changes, you can't just dump everything at once. So I mean, I think there was good and bad with him. The bad was what you said. The good was he didn't get caught with hookers on a boat.
Right.
Right. And I mean, all the stuff like that his boss was doing, he did bring an air of dignity, I think, to the team and professionalism rather. So from that respect, it was good. I harbor him no ill will.
He was brought in to put out a fire. Then in the process of putting
forest fire that was burning all the entire state of California down. That's what he was putting out.
Right. And then when he was putting out the fire, he also realized, there's an earthquake happening. And then
he caused an earthquake by his ham-handed simpletons. It's like the ham-handed simpletons guide to changing a team name by Jason Wright.
Well, okay. Yes. I was actually talking more about how he was brought in for just like the cheerleader scandal and found 40 other scandals.
Yeah, well, yeah,
Yeah.
that's what
At
I'm
a
saying. I mean, he
mile,
did the best he could.
Yeah.
had a mile-high tsunami bearing down.
Right.
Listen to
The
what
good
he had.
news is the tsunami puts out the fire. It's a win-win.
Well, I mean,
There
haven't we
you go.
all kind of been there at some level? I mean, you walk into a situation thinking there's one problem, and you walk in and they go, "Oh, look, there's 10 other
Oh,
problems
sure.
behind you."
I
Yeah.
may have been dealing with that all day today at work.
It might have happened to Alex 5 hours ago. Yeah, I mean, that's what he faced, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
As far as with me, I mean, I could see to the fact that he had to work alongside probably one of, if not the worst owners who have
Right.
ever come into sports altogether. Minus the actual extreme real true racist jagoffs that should actually be casted out into the middle of the desert somewhere, with no food and barely any water. But besides those people, outside of that, he was the purest, the worst owner of all sports ever. And I get that, I could see that point. But I think what kind of soured my taste a bit is that, and Alex, you had the phone call from him too as well, talking
Yeah.
about the whole rebrand. I mean, we spent probably a good 45 minutes on the phone, and we talked a lot about the history of the team, what was important, things that we need to hold on to, and I acknowledged, I understood that the Redskins name was never going to come back, and Warriors kind of was already acknowledged it wasn't going to happen and everything, but and I know I made a really good, strong point of you can't leave the past not not acknowledged whatsoever. You got to be able to bring that past, the history, into this rebrand one way or another. And when Commanders came out and the rebrand, the helmets, the black uniforms, the way they did it, and how it all came, I'm sorry, but there was nothing of the history on that full rebrand. So it was like everything you said that you were going to work on doing.
You
I
didn't
know
do.
you were going. He didn't do any of it. I get you're not going to do everything I ask about or suggest. I get that. But you didn't do anything
Well,
except
it's
for
not an
leaving the
expansion
colors.
team, you know. It wasn't an expansion team, and you turned it into an expansion team.
And that's
There's
exactly
a
how I treat it too.
Yeah, well, there's a rich history with the Washington Redskins going back to 1932 and
Yes.
participation in 5 Super Bowls,
Yep.
with the winning 3, and you just literally threw it all in the trash can. Not literally. That's literally not literally. I mean, you metaphorically threw it all into the trash can, and that really turned me off, as everybody knows.
I
It,
agree. And
it get,
it feels like only recently they're starting to
yeah.
acknowledge that that was a mistake how they treated it.
Right.
And
It basically got to a point where it was like, you know what, you've done all of this, just get rid of the burgundy and gold now. What's the point of even keeping their colors anymore? I mean, there's nothing else that ties this team to anything in the history. Oh no, wait, I'm sorry, Major Tutty.
Right.
Get out of here.
Yeah, really, the dumbest mascot in all sports.
But that was the only thing that tied them.
Yeah, the only thing.
And the reason why we're going through all this is all of that is Jason Wright's fault.
In the end, the buck stops with him, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So, it also means that everybody who was involved in that rebrand's now out of the office.
And yeah, we're stuck with the stupidest nickname in the NFL.
Right.
For those of you who are still fans, and you are if you're listening to us.
Yes. And of
Because
course,
you realize
I'm sure
people laugh at Commanders. Does everybody understand this?
Yes.
Dude, I live in Philadelphia. I fully understand that.
I know you guys. I wasn't talking to you two. I was really talking to people out there.
I
mean,
know.
who are like the sycophants who are going to listen to podcasts about the team.
Right.
I live in Texas, and the number of people who go, the Commanders is a stupid name, right? And I say, yes, I don't support the name, and blah blah blah.
Right. We all understand it's a terrible name.
Yes.
I think we might disagree on what you could do, but we all agree it's just a terrible name.
Correct.
And by the way, Mark Aaron, the minority owner who spoke this week and said, "Oh, well, people don't understand how big of a lift it is to change it." Hey, I got news for Mark Aaron. We've been through it twice. We fans actually know really well how much work it is for you to change a name and change uniforms because we're experts at it. Better than you.
Washington Bullets.
Yes. Well, no. We did it twice with this team in 4 years.
Yeah. I said before, I mean, I could have talked myself into living with Washington football team if they just left it.
Right.
But once I just
Commanders,
couldn't.
I know.
Yeah. I can't.
Could have lived with football team. Warriors, I'm sure you could have adapted to because it would
A
have
little bit, yeah.
they would have themed it probably
If
close
they had
enough.
wanted to themed it, if they'd wanted to
Yeah.
use a similar theme, yes.
Right. Right.
Well, in actuality, right now, with the way the logo came back the way it did, and when the Blackfeet tribe were talking about it and
Yeah.
the push on and everything, to me personally, I would think that kind of creeped the door open of this ownership doing similar to what Florida State Seminoles do with the Seminole Nation down there at Florida. You make a deal with the Blackfeet Nation. You make a deal with them to bring that logo back. We'll call it the Warriors, and you have people from your own reservation that make that appearance and make, on every single game. I mean, not necessarily throwing a spear.
I wouldn't hold my breath on it.
No, I know that.
Yeah.
No, I know. Yeah, I agree with that. But I'm just saying, like, the door's kind of cracked open for that. To me, if I was in that position, I'd be like, you know what? Let's have this conversation.
Yeah.
And you can
Well,
call them Warriors and bring the logo back with their 100% backing on it.
Yeah.
So,
You could have done that
Yeah.
Dan Snyder could have done that too because he was planning on
Sure.
doing that in 2002, but he didn't.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know.
So goodbye, Jason Wright. Best of luck.
Goodbye, Jason Wright. Whoever replaces him, I hope we don't even ever talk about you because
Well, that's the last thing was
Yeah.
that. So on normal teams, fans don't know who is running the business side of a team.
right, super fans like us might. But
Yeah, but normal Fans no. But Washington under Dan Snyder was such a train wreck.
Mhm.
Like, there's all you could think of. What's his name? Donald Sterling with the L.A. Clippers.
Right.
Marge Schott with the Cincinnati Reds. That's the level of train wreck Dan Snyder was, and that's when you have things like the business guy being the focus because he was actually not a total mess. So he gets kind of shoved out to the front. But I think hopefully, fans won't know anything really about the next guy who replaces Jason Wright running the business side of the team.
Yeah. And like Steve, you've obviously dealt with some of those front offices in your time. My wife, I've mentioned it. My wife worked for the Nationals for a couple of years, where she was just in sales, doing tickets and stuff. Like that front office is usually very detached. That side, the business side,
It's completely different. It is totally different.
Yeah.
I dealt with a lot with the general counsel of two teams, and it's just different.
Right. And but it's supposed to be because
yes,
the guy who's trying to build a football team doesn't know a whole lot about selling tickets.
Absolutely not. No.
Doesn't know a whole lot about marketing to advertising.
Sponsorship deals with Coca-Cola. No.
Right.
He doesn't know anything about that.
Right. And he shouldn't. He should know what am I looking for in a quarterback. That's his number one job. So yeah, like I don't even remember who my wife was dealing with as her manager, like in that side. I knew who Mike Rizzo was, the GM, and that's because a casual fan, that's who you should know. You should know your GM.
I want to tell my funny story, but I don't think I can because it would give some stuff away. So I'll have to hold it for off the air if I remember.
Yes. Well, is it about a guy whose father was like a crazy person or is a crazy person, or no?
No.
Okay, not about them. Okay. Yeah. I was trying to be as vague as possible, and I don't even know if I could pull. Because I know the teams you've done stuff with.
Yeah. No, it's not what you're talking about. No.
Yeah. Okay. Speaking of guys who had no business picking a new franchise name or doing anything in the front office, and they were, Ron Rivera had an interview.
Great segue, I said.
Yeah. Oh, you're welcome. Ron Rivera had this interview, and I all right. Now I'll be honest. I've only seen some of the quotes and some of the things Ron Rivera said. I think Dave, you're the same. None of us have actually had time to watch it, but it sounds like he just made a horse's ass out of himself. Is the moral of the interview. Ron Rivera talking about how, if he were still with Washington, he would have drafted Jane Daniels too. Well, of course, you kind of have to when you're picking number 2 overall. You should always pick a quarterback if you're number 2 overall.
Unless Chase Young's there.
Well,
look,
hindsight.
I'm gonna actually take an alternative perspective on this. And no, I mean I haven't watched this interview,
none of
but
us.
I read the quotes and I read the stuff that
Yeah.
Dave sent. Dave's like our resident follow
Dave,
this stuff on Twitter guy.
the day before the show, Dave just sends us like 40
I-
messages.
Yeah, and I catch up with it like 5 minutes before the show. That's typically what happens. But so I mean, look, the guy's trying to stay busy. He did an interview with who was it, Schefter, Adam Schefter, I
Yeah,
think.
Schefter, yeah.
Yeah,
Schefter.
and that's what Dave said. And then there was another one on one of the local radio stations that appears in DC. He's trying to keep busy. They asked him a legitimate question, like the thing about Jaden Daniels. Adam Schefter said basically, if you had been there and you were drafted number 2, what would you do? He said, I drafted Jaden Daniels. Well, that's not anything. I think Washington fans are bitter about him, understandably so. He was not a good coach, but none of the stuff I read was really all that unreasonable, to be perfectly honest. For a guy who's just filling time, trying to get in, put his hand in media for a little bit while he's waiting on his next opportunity, I thought it was fine.
Do you think he'll ever get another opportunity?
Well, I didn't necessarily mean as a coach.
Sure.
Next opportunity to do whatever he's going to do,
Gotcha. I feel like his next opportunity is, what golf times does he want for the rest of his life?
Well, he could get like a, NBC, media thing, or who knows? I mean, ESPN commentator, he could do something like that.
I guess. I mean, I'm sure if he went up to Chicago, he could get some local gig pretty easily, having been.
I just mean, my point is, he's filling time, nothing to do. He's
Yeah.
doing some interviews. He didn't say to me anything unreasonable if taken from an objective viewpoint. From a bitter Redskins fan or Washington fan, I understand, but I just think from my kind of more detached viewpoint, I thought it was not all that exciting.
I think one of the things that kind of stood out that kind of was a bit irritating was like really 2 things really. Was one of them where Kevin Sheehan made he said that Ron Rivera said he was more of a manager and not a coach in Washington, saying, as in Rivera saying that. It's like, that's, like what Kevin Sheehan says, and I agree 100%. You asked for that. That's what you wanted. That was the role you took, and everything went through you. You can't sit here and go, well, I was more of a manager. Well, you were more of exactly what you wanted to be. That's what you were. If you weren't able to handle it after year 2, maybe you should have taken away some of them duties so you could have been more of a coach instead of hanging on for the entire time that way. And who knows, you may even still be coaching this team still to this point.
Yeah, but the thing is, we didn't hear the interview.
No.
I mean, under what context was he talking about? It's really hard for me. I get your point, but it's really hard for me to criticize it when you haven't heard it. When I have not heard it, because it could have been in a context that was reasonable. Like he could have, maybe he was saying it in a regretful manner. Man, I was more of a manager than a coach. Maybe he was trying to say, I wish I would have coached more, and he screwed up. Maybe it was opposite. Maybe he was trying to pass the blame on somebody else. It's hard to see what the intent of it was unless you heard the entire context of it.
Well, I get that and I understand that and I agree with that. But the problem I have with that is that if you felt that way after year 2, obviously you had to have felt that way after year 2, because I mean you saw what everything, and plus on top of it, you take care of everything that Dan Snyder had to throw on your plate too. If you felt that way, then you should have done something to taking away some more or handing off more responsibilities to other people. And you didn't do. I mean, even when he brought in Mayu and Hurney, he still everything went through him, and he was the main man for everything. If that was the case, then you should have started relinquishing some of that then, instead of just I'm sorry, my bad. That's just how I looked at it anyway.
Well, look. So I will just wrap up this since we didn't really watch it. I'm gonna put out a hot take, and we'll move on. My hot take is Jay Gruden was a better coach than Ron Rivera, and Bruce Allen might have been a better team president than Jason Wright, because at least Bruce Allen would not have screwed up the Sean Taylor Memorial.
Nobody was a worse team president than Bruce Allen.
He,
I could
but
go
he,
with maybe Gruden was a better coach. Maybe I don't
yeah,
know.
I know.
But Bruce, no, Bruce
Bruce
Allen
would
was a total
Bruce
fool.
failed at everything, but he would have gotten things like the memorial right. Those were the only things he knew how to do, or stupid things like
I
that.
don't know. I can't. I'm not down with that. And in terms of like Gruden and
Yeah,
Rivera, I mean, neither one of them are great coaches.
right.
They
No,
both of them got C grades at best, at their best. They were just different.
sure.
I don't know if I'd want either one of them coaching my brand new expansion team.
I will
If
say something that was ironic though, that what Ron Rivera did say to Schefter is now Washington just has to protect Jaden Daniels. I'm
Whoops.
yeah,
hello.
yeah, yeah. It would have been helpful to do that for any of your quarterbacks, Ron. Any of
Yeah,
them.
right.
Maybe you shouldn't have traded away Trent Williams, but
Yeah, maybe not. All right, so let's move on to our final thing because we got to do our last position group breakdown. Our surprise final episode of position group breakdown.
sorry again.
It's
My
our wide
fault.
receiver review, and Dave has written it up. It's not published yet on
It'll
our
be up
site.
Friday.
It'll
Yeah.
be up Friday.
Right.
So, Dave, why don't you just kind of take it away? Where do you want to start?
I'll start the returning players from last year, which would be Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, Jameson Crowder, and De'Ami Brown. And in this article, I kind of went a little bit of a different route than what I normally do in these. I focused a little more on their targets, catch percentage, drop rates, and so forth. And the one thing that and McLaurin, reliable hands. I mean, he's been pretty solid in his career. The one thing that you go to Jahan Dotson because you guys know how high I was on him to begin with when he first came in. But you're talking about a guy who had a 6% drop rate last year out of 83 targets, and the year before that I think I had him down at 8.7 drop rate that he had a year prior to that, and it was or I'm sorry 9.8% drop rate. As now, since he is going to be coming in as a number 2 guy, and there are 89 targets left on the table from Curtis Samuel's departure from last year, he's going to have to be responsible for taking up a majority of them. He has got to shore up them hands, and the worst part about all that is that he had one of the lowest drop rates in all of college football. The one thing he did not do was drop the football, and he had one of the worst quarterbacks in Trace McSorley in college football. So he definitely had to catch contested ball after contested ball. So I'm not sure what his problem is. So in order to get the compliment that you need to Terry McLaurin, he has got to step up to be that true number 2 guy. Your thoughts on Jahan Dotson and McLaurin?
For a time as a rookie, I thought Jahan Dotson may have better raw talent than Terry McLaurin.
Yes.
And somehow it didn't develop. But I have a hard time holding that against him too much because the rest of the team was such a total train wreck, including the quarterback and everything. I think if he was in a more stable environment, he could thrive. And I don't know if this is going to be a more stable environment if the offensive line doesn't improve. So I don't think it's time to give up on him. I think he may be more dynamic in raw ability than McLaurin at his best. I'm talking about here at his best. He's a good route runner. The drops did concern me. I was surprised he has drop percentages. I've already read Dave's column and because I edited it, and I was surprised the drop percentage was that high, really. But I do think he's a type of player who has enough natural ability that if put in the right situation, he can improve and become a solid player.
I mean, I've always said that to me, Jahan Dotson and Terry McLaurin are essentially the same player in terms of skill set. They're not big guys. They have some good speed, but their best asset is their ability to run a good route, their ability to get open in fine space a little bit, and then make big catches when they need to. Both of them had down years last year. I don't think it's unfair to say that about either of them. And part of that or a big part of that is your quarterback situation and having a coach who basically just called seam passes all the time. Like that,
Right.
it seems like we only ran two types of routes that entire season.
With a bad quarterback under pressure all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, yeah. I'm hoping that if Kingsbury is smart, he can use them more on the types of routes that make Terry McLaurin and John Dotson dangerous. Cuts inside,
Yeah.
slant routes, uh,
Get it
things
more
that
one-on-one more often.
yeah, find one-on-one spots. Uh, give them weight shots to like juke guys out because that's what they do. That's what they're the best at. So I'm hoping that happens this year.
Now,
Yeah.
now the only real quick count I would give on the comment you made, Steve, on the quarterback play, I would side with that more if it wasn't for the fact that Jahan Dotson has spent 2 years with one of the worst college quarterbacks in the with Trace McSorley, with him being the only target outside of the tight end, which his name slips my mind right now. But it's and Gesicki. He had Gesicki on that team with him as well.
Mm.
So it was like he was the primary guy. He was the primary number one and number two wide receiver on that offense with a quarterback that was terrible with a low drop rate. So I think it's more concentration. I think he definitely has a talent to rebound, and I expect him to fully get to there.
I do
But,
definitely agree that the drop rate was concerning, but also, I mean,
yes.
we'd also want to. I'd also, if we were really going to study him, maybe I will one of these days, really go watch every play and see what kind of drops we're talking about.
Yeah. Now that
because
goes
a
on
drop,
to
a drop is not totally objective.
no,
Like
sure.
what is a drop?
Right.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
Right.
because I mean, because some drops they count are the ones that are like thrown right behind them, but if the
Mhm.
receiver got his hands on it, they consider that a drop as
Yeah,
opposed to just
there's a
error
bit of
throw. Yeah,
of a
absolutely.
subjective evaluative
Sure.
criteria to
Right.
it. So yeah.
Sure.
Right. I mean,
Now,
there's
as
a
far as
limit to it, but yeah.
yeah, now as far as De'Ami Brown, he has probably the most probably has the most approval in this group going into this fourth season because he actually doubled his drop rate from his rookie year. Last year he didn't target he didn't get targeted nearly enough to even really look at last year. But in his rookie year he had a 4% drop rate. Last year he was 8.7 last year.
Mm.
Now granted he only had 23 targets, and I know that, but he didn't take full advantage of those limited amount of targets either at the same time, which is a bit concerning. So he has the most approved because when you go through into the free agent acquisitions, I think there's a guy sitting there that that's very well primed to take his role if he doesn't rebound. But your thoughts on De'Ami Brown first?
De'Ami Brown needs to get his resume together, maybe get a suit, some nice shoes, practice some interviewing, perhaps. De'Ami Brown is going to be a draft bust. He's going to be gone. He's never really showed me anything. I mean, he's one of these guys that looks good in college,
Right.
because he was fast,
Yeah.
but he's not shown me anything to think that he could be some sort of long-term contributor on NFL teams. Not to say he's going to be totally out of the NFL tomorrow or anything, but by the standards of third-round draft pick, I just don't see it with him. Especially with Luke McCaffrey here as maybe the number 3, the slot guy.
Yeah.
No.
True.
I'm with you. I think that Brown. Look, we're in year 3. His best season is 12 catches. He's not even putting up number 5 numbers. Let's be honest.
No, that's a good point. No, it's not.
Like these are the numbers that make you a United Football League player.
Well,
that,
I mean, also,
future.
more importantly, think about, what role is he supposed to play?
Right.
He's supposed to be, he's not that little, but he's supposed to be the fast, dangerous slot guy, sort of like the reincarnation of Deshaun Jackson, like the Walmart version of Deshaun Jackson or something, maybe. And that's just not, he's just not that in any capacity.
Well, because he was college fast, he's not NFL fast.
That's exactly right.
He doesn't really take the top off, which is what you need. Like
ideally,
that's what
that was what kind of they expected out of him, because he did it in college. But you're right, he's not that fast. I can't remember his 40 time, but it didn't blow me away.
Right. I think Terry's was much better. because Terry McLaurin, we forget how fast his
Terry ran a 4.35.
Yeah,
yeah.
Which is outstanding.
Yes,
but
So
yeah, it is. I mean, I think if he makes the roster, he's not getting a new contract. He's just here for depth at that point. So that's my thought on him.
And then to close out the returning guys, you have Mitchell Tinsley, Dax Milne, Casimir Allen, and Bryson Tremaine. Casimir Allen, we talked last week. I think his biggest role will be special teams and potentially even on kickoff, especially on the new kickoff return format.
Mm-hmm.
But Michael Tinsley is a guy that probably is someone who could really fill in the back end of the roster. He's have a scouting report. He's got reliable hands as a smooth route runner. He really knows how to find the openings in the zones. He can sit down in them and so forth, all in a scouting report. So
no, he was a practice squad last year. Is that right?
Yes, he was on a practice squad last year. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was another guy out of Penn State as well. So
yeah.
But I mean, it's going to be a lot for him to make the roster. But of these last four guys that I mentioned, I think he's probably the most likely to have the strongest advantage to making that back end of the roster of these guys, I think.
You did I think miss Jameson Crowder in that returning group.
Well, I mentioned his name. I didn't go in detail about him.
Yeah.
I mean,
but be honest. Is this because he's a Penn State guy?
Who's that? Mitchell Tinsley?
Yeah.
No, because the fact
is no, because yes.
No, Mitchell Tinsley is a guy that I like, but he's not a guy that I love. You know, and it's when I get to my free agent acquisitions, there's a guy in there that I think will probably bump him off the roster anyway.
I'm just teasing
but
you.
I'm
relax.
not. I know you are. But I'm not going to steal my thunder yet either.
It's so easy.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's any strong opinions about any of the guys coming back. I think.
No.
Allen and Crowder, you might give an edge to because I think either or both of them will be returners. One young guy, one vet makes a lot of sense now that you have to have two kick returners. So that I could see that.
So now on to the guys that we had just recently added this year, which goes to Alamide. I think how you say his name is Zacchaeus.
Yeah, Alamide Zacchaeus. Yeah.
Alamada Zacchaeus,
let's go.
Davion Davis, and Demir Bird. But this is where Demir Bird and Zacchaeus, I think, come with the most. Well, they definitely come with the most experience of the three that are signed. But Zacchaeus is the one that's the most intriguing, as he had a 0% drop percentage this past year. But to add more perspective onto where he was. In years 2021 and 2022, he had respectively, he had a 3.1% drop rate on 53 targets and a 3.8% drop rate on 61 targets. And he's a guy that came out of college around a 4.9 40, so he's not a blazer, but he's a solid to good route runner. He's a guy that is good polished hands. He's a guy that could really be utilized very well in special teams. And this is a guy right here, I think, ultimately decides the fate of De'Ami Brown.
I mean, I think he does in that you only are going to keep so many guys on the roster. I think he's a different fit. He's not going to take that role that De'Ami Brown had.
No, I think
is more of a slot receiver build.
Sure.
I think that's
you're right. And I think that leads to the point of what Steve was mentioning with Luke McCaffrey. I think Luke McCaffrey will probably supplant that role that you would want to see De'Ami Brown play anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So, but
by the way, De'Ami Brown ran a 4.44 40.
Yeah.
Pretty
fast.
Which is still fast, but
not by modern wide receiver standards. Right. That's not burning fast.
No. Luke McCaffrey, who we're going to talk about in a bit, he ran a 4.6 or 4.46. Yeah. So, I'm sorry. Who were we talking about?
Zacchaeus.
Sorry, I distracted you.
Yeah. Yes, that's all right. But I do think that Zacchaeus will be. He has a good shot, but I just think the role is a very different role. That's all.
No, I agree. I just when I actually wrote this article, I wasn't thinking much of him. Is that when I get to this article, I was thinking, I mean, this is a guy who really has a good shot on making the back end of that roster and actually playing a role
Hmm.
potentially on this offense.
Yeah, he could. He could. Of those guys, the ones who were mostly brought in to be camp bodies, let's be honest, he's
Yeah,
probably got the best chance.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
sure.
All
So,
right.
Steve, you want Zacchaeus or nothing?
I have not watched Zacchaeus. I don't know what to say about him, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, these back of the roster guys like that, I think they're all total long shots. Um, Not one of them is the most likely option. Is none of these guys, none of those three are gonna pan out, probably. You
Yeah.
know, so, I mean,
At least
beyond
not
that.
pan out more than maybe just be on the roster for depth.
Yeah. Now I'll say, about Zacchaeus, he's he's
Mhm.
5'8",
Yeah.
193, and so they don't really have a guy that's well. I mean,
Crowder's
they
that size too.
yeah, but Crowder.
Yeah.
I mean, Demir Bird, I guess. So I kind of take Crowder out of it. I mean, because he's
Mhm.
sort of the returner, and
Yeah.
so if they want to have a guy that's that small, because there could be advantages to that, he's going to compete with Demir Bird. Now, between the two of those guys, who's better? I don't know. I haven't watched either one of them.
Yeah. Um, and I do think that plays still a part in how teams build their rosters, or it should. That you want a couple of guys who are different sizes, having one guy who's a good speed guy versus a bigger receiver who's just a rock solid possession guy. I think there's more value in having variety, and I actually think it hurt them last year that they didn't on the receiving roster.
Washington's like gone a long time without having proper variety. It seems like
Yeah.
they've lacked big receivers. They've always
Right.
had a bunch of small guys. I mean, it seems like they go in waves with who they have.
They
So,
do. I mean, when
and I
you
guess that
think
was kind
back
of my
to
point. And like, by the
yeah,
way, I mean, Casimir Allen's another guy who's pretty small. So I mean, you have to throw he's 5'9" too. So
mhm,
like those three guys may be competing for a role. That's what I'm
yeah,
saying.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I'm a big fan of have variety. You think back to the whole Pierre Garcon, Deshaun Jackson, young Jamison Crowder at that time. Those are three very different players, but it meant you could attack people different ways.
I just think Crowder's not really competing at that level with
Not
those three
now.
other
No, no.
guys.
I'm
Yeah,
Yeah.
talking like 10 years ago when we
right.
first drafted him.
Yeah.
All right. So I guess who do we got left to talk about?
We have our two rookies, Luke McCaffrey and Marcus Rosemai Jack Saint.
Did you mention Dax Milne?
Yeah.
He was mentioned.
Very
Yeah.
quickly. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Dax Millen
Okay.
was mentioned.
Because
Now,
I was going through trying to find De'Ami Brown's 40 time, so I
right.
missed part of that.
I mean, is there
Yeah.
anything you want to say about Dax Milne?
No,
Not
why is he
me.
on the team? That's what I would say.
Yes.
I
Exactly.
mean,
He
do we
won't
want to talk
be.
about him now dating the ex-girlfriend of his old roommate from BYU?
Say what? I mean, I really couldn't care
Uh,
less.
Zach Wilson was Dax Milne's roommate.
Uh-huh.
So Dax Milne is now dating Zach Wilson's ex-girlfriend.
So she gets
Which
passed around through a bunch of football
I guess
players.
so.
Yeah. I mean, good for her if that's what she wants.
you
But
know how those BYU folks are.
Dax Milne is going to soon be an ex-football player, so
Yes.
Yeah.
So
I'll have to move on to someone else, I guess.
Yeah.
now, as far as Luke McCaffrey, I mean, everyone knows about him. The scouting
Mhm.
report, ex-quarterback, really good out of his break, short-handed receiver, and so forth.
We talked about him
Uh,
earlier. Yes.
Yes. Now, the couple things that stand out that he's going to have to certainly work on to succeed in the next level, from when I'm reading his scouting report in full, that he does struggle getting off of press coverage, and he can tend to be very one-dimensional with his speed, especially his transitions into his routes. So he doesn't have that real quick, kind of stutter, kind of
He
come
doesn't
down
have a
from it.
great break off the ball. He does not.
Correct.
He's got one thing. That's
Yeah.
why I kind of think he's more that possession receiver label is pretty accurate for him unless he can develop that more because better receivers can do that better, what you're talking about. And
Yeah.
he doesn't often break away off the line out of people and create space.
Mhm.
That's
Correct.
not really what he does. That's I think the downside to Luton Caffrey.
There's been a lot of talk about him being a big slot guy for the team, and to me, if you're not good at breaking, I don't think that works then in the
Well,
slot
the
very well.
thing, I mean, I'd call him more of a possession receiver. I mean, kind of a
Right.
forced slot guy by the fact that that's all there's left. I
Yeah.
mean,
Sure, but you
there's
could
no
keep
doubt that Terry McLaurin is the X, Jahan
right.
Dotson is a Z, period dot the end. So it's either
Correct.
slot guy or nothing for him.
I
Right.
mean, I feel like you're better off forcing because I think Dotson's and McLaurin's skill set works better for that, quick move to get open inside time to time. But I get what you're saying. They're the higher value receivers. But
Absolutely.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, it does make it
And
complicated.
and as far as Jack saying, he 40-yard dash 4.81. He does well in contested balls. He's a good route runner. But he does struggle on getting and maintaining separation, and very very limited yards after catch. He's a guy that most likely will be a practice squad guy, and more or less he's going to have to earn his way on the team through special teams on the most part.
I'd like to make a critical prediction about Marcus Roseme Jack Saint.
What's that?
This is the last time we will mention the name Marcus Roseme Jack Saint on this show.
I would also I want to see him in preseason just because that has got to be the longest name on the back of the jersey that we'll
Really, I
ever
know.
see. Because you might need 2 lines on the back of the jersey for that.
It's also
one.
the strangest last name I've ever seen.
It's a long one.
Yeah.
The hyphenated name era is definitely starting to come upon
Where
us.
does the name Jack Saint come from? Like what ancient, I don't know even what ethnic group he is, but I mean, where does that come? That's a very strange
Well, he's
last.
African American.
Is he? Okay. I mean, I don't know. That's odd.
Yeah, I don't know what that comes from.
But my point
It-
is, this is the longest conversation we'll ever have about him.
yeah. It almost sounds like Jack saying like it was a confirmation name, and he just kept it ever since.
Well, that's kind of why I was wondering what his ethnic background is, because
Right.
yeah.
It is it's Brazilian apparently. I've Googled it.
Ah,
Yeah.
we've Googled a lot on this show.
So I guess that if it's a Brazilian last name, that would mean it's probably from what, Portugal? Because isn't that who kind of colonized Brazil? The Portuguese?
Well, yeah, the Portuguese, yeah.
So I guess it's something from that thread.
Marcus, if you're out there, let us know.
Yes,
There you go.
we
Nobody
love
else
Come on
wants
the
to
show.
interview you. No, nobody else wants to interview you. We'll interview you.
Yeah, why not?
And that's a really enticing
Right, and hey,
pitch,
then he
isn't
gets
it?
mentioned on the
Yeah.
show again.
There you go.
Yeah,
You could defeat our prediction. Just come
Yeah.
on the show.
yeah, and we're nice. We're actually very nice.
Oh, we wouldn't make fun of you right in front of you. I mean, yeah, we would do a
No,
legitimate
no.
interview. We've always treated all of our
No,
guests really
Marcus, if you
really
come
well.
on, we can all make fun of Luke McCaffrey. How about that?
There you go. Yeah. I do wish him the best of luck. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
laughing about it, but I mean, I just think there's too many players on this team. One
Oh,
of these guys always kind of sticks out and becomes a fan favorite. Maybe it could be him. Maybe somebody else.
Maybe
Like
he'll be the
Casimir,
next Marcus Colson.
Casimir Allen at times has kind of caught people's attention.
Right. But
So it could be him.
there are 13 guys on the roster right now. Right? Like there's 13 receivers.
And they're going to keep 5 or 6
5 or
at
6.
most.
Yeah.
And a couple on the practice squad. And so who knows? So I guess before we got to make roster predictions, do we not?
Yes, we do.
Yep. So for me, I would say we're going to be Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, Jamison Crowder, Zacchaeus, I think, makes the final cut. Luke McCaffrey, of course, is going to be there. And if they keep 6, I think that's where you'll see Casimir Allen come into play on the back end of that. And I think Tinsley, and Tinsley and Jack Saint will get to the practice squad.
I'm gonna say McLaurin, Dotson, McCaffrey, Crowder. Those four are locked in stone. I realize I just said negative things about De'Ami Brown, but I think he's going to make the roster for better or for worse.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's a 6, it's going to be Casimir Allen. And sure, because I laughed at him, I'm going to go with Mosby Jackson on the practice squad at least. That's mine.
It's a tough one. I mean, I think
it is tough.
The big three are obvious: the McLaurin, McCaffrey, or Dotson. What was that? Something just snapped on my.
We're still here on the air, Alex.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Something like one of the springs just snapped on my.
Well, you had a cat crawling behind you just a minute ago.
It had nothing to do with the cat.
The
cat's gone.
Okay. I don't know if the cat was
loud.
back there, but he was like on camera. It's a shame we don't have video.
Yeah. One of my cats was just hanging out on the back of my chair. So I'm gonna say Crowder gets in for returns. Maybe Kaz Allen as well.
So that's 5.
That's 5. I feel like they're gonna keep 6, but I honestly don't know who that 6 could be.
It's tough.
It really is. I guess I'll go with Zacchaeus. You know, like someone's got to show something in camp though. Like this is a wide open competition for 3 spots, in my opinion. Any of those 3 guys could get knocked out.
Yeah.
So, it's going to be a tough one at receiver. And you know what? No one's really talking about that. That is going to be a pretty good competition to watch. I'll look for it when I'm in training camp on the 4th.
Absolutely. I went with Rosemary Jackson mainly just to defeat my own prediction.
Right. Yeah, and also again, just gonna be hilarious to see how that name tries to fit on the back.
It really is, and to see like some bumbling, TV commentator try to repeat that name.
Right. He needs to wear a long sleeve jersey just to make it work.
Go down his shoulders, maybe.
Exactly. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this episode. We will talk to you all next week. Until then, hope you enjoy some training camps videos and stuff online. Bye.
Later.
Can't they enjoy more than that?